important question every time we get on here. Did we come from apes, aliens, or Adam? Today we're going to look at a fossil making machine. And you're probably wondering, what? I thought fossils have to be, things buried in the ground for millions of years and it takes a long time to become a fossil. And fossils are at least 10,000, if not millions or hundreds of millions of years old. Well, we're going to demystify that whole process. And yes, we will be looking at it from two perspectives. The Adam perspective, which is creationism, young earth creationism as it's sometimes labeled, and from the ape theory, which means evolution, paleontology, and modern geology. Okay? So that's what we're going to do tonight. And we're going to show you, I haven't even seen it yet. I've seen pictures, but we're going to be unboxing this. This contains the machine that can make fossils quickly. So, before we get into that, let's talk about fossilization. Now, I'm no geologist, and I admit it, I don't mind. You guys maybe aren't either. So shoulder to shoulder, we read and we learn and we share. So that's all we're going to do. Hi, Alan. How are you? AR, Patriot, welcome. Dell, glad you guys are here. So, what are fossils? There's two types of fossils I want to focus on tonight, and they comprise the majority. Number one, petrified. Number two, permineralized. Now, the petrified is usually associated with a piece of wood like this. This is a petrified piece of wood. But what it really means is that anything where the cells have been substituted entirely by minerals, meaning that there's no more wood in here. If this is truly petrified, 100%, then there's no more wood in here. Just a facsimile of wood based on the one-to-one, if you want to call it that, transference of cell to mineral, and then it hardens. Okay? That's petrification, whether it be wood or anything else. Then there's this other type of fossil called permineralized. It was not one that I was familiar with. I'm glad I did because it's very interesting. Permineralization, and this, by the way, is a dinosaur vertebrae. There's the vertebrae passageway for the spinal cord. And this has been shined up so you can see how lovely it looks. Otherwise, it looks like a rock. So this is permineralized. What does that mean? I'm glad you asked. Permineralization means that the cells have been surrounded by minerals and then crystallize or harden. So there's still dinosaur molecules, cells, however the amount is in here, are in this still. And a lot of dinosaur bones are permineralized, okay? So the bone is still in there, but it's been surrounded by crystals, and it is, in all essence, rock. Okay? So those are the two types. Now the question is twofold. Number one, how long does it take to form a fossil? Number two, how old are they? We're going to deal mostly with how long does it take to form a fossil. If you were to ask the average person on the street that never went to college for geology or paleontology, and you were to ask them, how long does it take to form a fossil? They would probably say a long time. Maybe they would say hundreds of millions of years, millions of years. And if they were to use the textbook definition of time, they would say that there is no fossil that's less than 10,000 years. That seems to be the cutoff, 10,000 years and beyond. You may find it very interesting, and I did when I was digging into this, no pun intended, that fossilization can happen so fast that one evolutionary paleontologist suggested that the cause of death was due to fossilization. What he's saying is that the burial of whatever it is, like this ammonite, the burial of this ammonite or fish, let's just say, is so quick. And all you got to do is get on the internet and look at fish fossils. Just do it sometime. When you do, notice how delicate, the delicate parts of it are preserved. Now, those delicate parts, when a fish dies, maybe some of you that are fishermen know that they don't last real long. They don't stay firm and defined. Everything kind of turns to mush after a while, which means it had to be buried. And, we're not talking about a little bit of silt. They did an experiment one time where they took a whole basket full of dead catfish and they buried it deep in the mud, like 5 feet down. And within 6 days, I believe it wasn't a long period of time. Let me just put it that way. They pulled it up. Now, understand that when you read the definition of fossils, they'll say that, and the leaf comes down to rest, and then silt goes over it, and then more silt goes over it until it is buried, and then the fossilization process begins. Okay, so we forced fish in a cage 5 feet underground, 5 feet in the mud, and you'll see mud or silt mentioned in the fossilization process. When they pulled the cage back up, do you know what they found? They didn't find anything in the cage. It was just completely either deteriorated or the vermin inside the mud got at them or whatever, but they disappeared. That's a good question then you have to ask. What are the conditions then that are proper in order for something like a delicate leaf to be able to be fossilized? I mean, this has never come up in ninth grade earth science class. I can assure you that. And you won't hear this in the movie Jurassic Park or on the History Channel or on National Geographic. You won't really read about it in any of the scientific journals. Once in a while you might, where they talk about this. Now, why is that? Well, all those things I just mentioned are owned, if you want to say owned and operated, by a philosophy, a scientific hypothesis that the earth is really old and things have been kind of going along, and the mechanisms we see today, the natural slow mechanisms, is basically how all of this we see around us formed. That's an assumption, and they believe it's based on good science, good logic, good reasoning, and can be proved. Okay, so and I lost my train of thought. This happens once in a while, but that's okay. Let me show you this fossil leaf. So let me get this close enough. There you go. It's kind of a maple leaf with the stem. I think it's bent backwards. Let's do this. There we go. Okay, you can see the edges of it right there. One thing you'll notice about leaf fossils is that they're fresh. They're not like all deteriorated and crumbled up and already, just crumbling. When they get pressed, majority of everything you see looks like it's been preserved like you'd put in a book. You'll notice that they're flat. They're not usually like this when they're fossilized. They're just like this. If you're a crime scene investigator, that should tell you something. Well, it means that however it got there, it laid flat and then something laid flat on top of it that kept it preserved so that it didn't get all dry and wrinkled and full of holes and hardly anything left. It never did that. Even the clams are fossilized closed, which means that they didn't get a chance to die, which when they do, they open, and then they're fossilized like that. Not to say you don't find those, but the majority of the clams that you find, go find a fossilized clam and see what I'm talking about. That means that the clam was still alive when it was going through the process of burial and eventually fossilization. The majority of them are like that. These are all crime scene like indicators of who did it. Is it long periods of time slowly through natural processes? Or are we seeing this as a huge cataclysmic event that happened more recently, i.e., the Genesis flood, where all the mechanisms that were necessary for burial, for fossilization, were there? Okay, that's my preamble. Let me show you another fossil leaf. There you go. And there you go. They may not be the exact species, but they're close enough. There you go. There you go. All right. Well, that was our introduction. Now let's get into the good stuff. I'm going to break out the machine next, and then I'm going to show you what the machine did. Okay? And I'll be happy to answer. Let's see if you have any questions. Events, condition, variables, change. That's right. You know, fossilization has more to do with the right conditions than time. If you were to just lay a leaf on the ground and give it 1 billion years, it's not going to fossilize. It's going to be gone. It'll deteriorate. Something will grab it and do something with it, or it just will just... That's what happens. Something did this process. This machine right here was created to replicate that process. The person who invented this machine is a young Earth creationist, meaning that he believes that the worldwide flood, which happened over a 1-year period, produced the necessary conditions in order to fossilize. That's the idea. Now, let me say one more thing before we open this box. When you ask any geologist, I'm talking about people who are educated in that field, you don't have to put them up against the wall, but they will tell you that fossilization can be very quick, that the formation of rock can take place very quickly. They know it, but they don't pronounce it because most of the rock forms very slowly because of their premise of long ages and slow geology. And fossilization, even though it can happen very, very quickly, they don't promote it because it takes away, is this a motive? Takes away from their argument? I don't know if they're purposely doing that, but it just seems unnecessary for them to bring that up over and over and over again. Okay. Here we go. Those of you just joining us, we are opening up a fossil making machine, and then I'm going to give you some background on it, and then I'm going to show you an example of it. And then I'm going to have you guys guess how long it took to produce, okay? All right, here we go. Again, I have not seen this only other than in photographs. Oh, wow. This is cool. Oh, this thing's heavy. Oh. Just seeing if there's anything else with it. Okay, let me get my table back here. I'm going to set it up here so you guys can see it better. There we go. There you go. Now, what does this do that would replicate the worldwide flood? This is what produces the pressure. You need pressure in order to be able to produce the fossil. The water has to be squeezed out, okay? And pressure on it needs to take place in order for the fossilization process to take place. So what would the PSI be on something like this? You ready for this? And those of you that don't know PSI, like I don't know what to compare it with. It's 3,000 pounds per square inch. 3,000 pounds per square inch. You ready for this? Replicates approximately 5 to 10,000 feet of overburden. Now, what does that mean? That means when a fossil gets buried, whether it be a twig, a stump, a fish, whatever, they've experimented with this to find out what the conditions are necessary for it. And the overburden is silt, clay, sand over the item that is being buried. So what that means is that, say this leaf is laying on the ground, okay? 5 to 10,000 feet of overburden is then necessary to produce this into this. Now, where are you getting all that overburden? In a worldwide context, flood context, you have that condition, okay? All right. In here, and I'm not going to take it apart tonight because I don't have the wrench to do this, but I'm going to do some, actually I'm going to make my own fossil at some point here, and I'll video that and I'll show you. As a matter of fact, if you guys want to go and hit the subscribe button, I know you hear that so much, and then do this for yourself, not for me, but for yourself. When you do subscribe, that little bell, you'll see a drop down. Click the top portion of that bell drop down, because then you'll actually get alerted. If you just subscribe, you may not get alerted for much. So what we're going to do in the future is that we're going to take this apart. I'm going to show you step by step how to make a fossil in one of our lives. And then in a video, I'll actually do it. And then I'm going to, in our next month, I may take this apart next Friday. We may do that, but I may show you some coal that was formed. Okay, so I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. What I want to do right now is show you. So 3,000 PSI is necessary for the compression. This then goes into the oven at 450 degrees. So you have mud, minerals, clay, okay? You have the object that you want to fossilize. You've got 3,000 pounds of pressure. And then you've got 450 degrees. How long? Okay, let me just set this down, okay? How long do you think it takes to make a fossil? I want to see what you guys, as I get ready to show you one, I want to ask you, what do you think it takes to make a fossil with this machine? You know, is it a minute? Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? Go ahead and just put it right in the comments, and don't worry, there's no bad answer on this one. The fossils that should be in the ground, Mount St. Helens eruptions, you would think, but Mount St. Helens has to produce those same effects. And if they don't, then there isn't. 6 months, thank you, Dell. Billions and trillions of years, thank you, can we? 24 hours, that's funny, thank you, Miles. 6 weeks, thank you, Kevin. 24 to 48, very good, Captain. 10 minutes, very good, Kurkula. Natty, thank you. All right, you guys did good. You guys did good. So let me show you. This cylinder right here is the cylinder that you saw on the machine, okay? That's part of it, and take a look at it. "10 years, very good, Jason. Oh, look at that. Okay, the answer to the question is it takes, from start to finish, okay, 24 hours. 24 hours to produce this. I'm going to show you one I haven't shown anyone yet. I'm going to show it on the live here. I want you to see if you guys can guess what this is. Can you guess what this is? Yeah, it's a little squid. It's an octopus of some sort. This was made in 24 hours. 24 to 48 hours in the same machine. So, yes, we have seen soft bodied creatures fossilized. They do happen. But look at that. Now, we're going to have more on this. That's why I say subscribe to the channel right now, because we're going to have more stuff like this. I have several $1,000s, close to $10,000 in artifacts and geological anomalies coming over the next several weeks. We're going to be unboxing all of them here on TikTok, excuse me, on YouTube Live, and also doing videos on it. But I just wanted to give you, geologists have known for decades. See, this is Howard right here is a geologist. Look what he says here. This is true. Have known for decades that well-preserved fossils require rapid deposition. So this is nothing new. Oh, yes, it is, Howard. For the average person on the street, it sure is. Now, why aren't they saying this on the History Channel? Why aren't they talking about this in the documentaries on YouTube or, the Smithsonian Channel, Discovery Magazine? Can you point to an article? I mean, I've seen articles. They're very few. Where is there an article on fast-forming fossils? Where? Is it in the textbook in high school? No. It may be in college. If you're a geologist, they may mention it. And then it becomes, okay, well, that's how it works. But in a worldwide flood context, you have to have fast-forming fossils, obviously, because the claim is it had happened, it was horrific, it created the conditions necessary for fossilization, and there you go. So, which is it? Apes, aliens, or Adam? All right. I'm going to end for right now, and I'm glad you guys came aboard to take a look at this. And we will be, next Friday, we'll be opening up another package and another exciting episode. I hope it's exciting for you guys as well as I enjoy doing these. So there you have it. Lost in translation. All the evidence of slow deposition are being ignored by creationists. That's a claim, Howard. That's a claim. That it is slow deposition, and that's an assumption. That's an assumption. Based, I know, on evidence. I get it. I get it. See, guys and gals, this is where the two contend with each other. One claims that it's uniformitarianism. That's a $3 word for everything kind of did this for 4.61 billion years, 4.51 billion years, excuse me. And that there was no worldwide flood, maybe some local floods along the way. And since the 1980s, punctuated catastrophism, that was a dirty word up until the 1980s. You would never say the word catastrophism in geology or paleontology prior to the 1980s. Why? Because it breathed of creationism. And that, to the geologist and paleontologist, is anathema. Anathema. And yet, the people who started science, the scientific method, were all creationists. Back in the 1600s, 1700s, they were all creationists. Isn't that ironic? I didn't know that until more recently. And they believed in a young Earth. That is the geology. I mean, the original granite rock could be way older than even what geologists say today. We really don't know. We think we know through the different types of measuring, but that's, that has assumptions, and sometimes it's educated guesswork. So there you have it. Okay, guys and gals, thank you very much for attending. We'll see you next time. And just remember, is it? Because it all boils down to this. I could have a PhD in creationism. I could have a PhD in geology or paleontology, but it all boils down to this one question. Is it apes, aliens, or Adam? Which one is it? Thank you.